A very good afternoon to all my dear students. Welcome to today's session for paper number 5, Auditing and Ethics. So students, today we'll be starting with chapter number 4, which is Audit Evidence. A really very interesting topic and a very important chapter, right? So students, so far we have covered our 3 chapters, that is whereby in chapter number 1 you have studied about the basics of auditing, the nature, the scope, the objective, right? Then in the second chapter, you have studied about the audit strategy, audit planning and program. And in third chapter that we have finished in the last session, we have covered risk assessment and internal control. So I expect that all your concepts of chapter number 1, 2, 3 are clear, because see, now we are proceeding with 4th chapter, audit evidence, and you will see that a lot of your understanding of the earlier 3 chapters are going to, play an important role in understanding this chapter also, right? So I expect all your queries are resolved with respect to the earlier chapters. And in case you have any query, you can always send in your queries. We are here to help you out with resolving your queries, right? So let us start with chapter number 4, which is audit evidence, a very lengthy chapter. And here in this chapter, we have a number of essays. And on these essays, students, you can always get, situation-based questions, your MCQs, whereby practical-based situation will be given to you. And you will be required to either answer it as MCQ or descriptive type. So a very important chapter, right? So let us start with this. And my first question to you, as I always start my session with a question which is to be answered by you people. Tell me, what is the meaning of the term evidence? So audit, I'm sure by now you all are aware as to what is meant by audit. And also you all must have learned that definition also, right? Now tell me, what is meant by the term evidence? So I can see Uh, proof. Vishal is saying, Monica is saying fact, Rishita is saying proof, Tanvi is saying proof. Others also please reply. So that's good. So see, when when we as auditors, we have to give our opinion, right? We are giving our opinion as to whether the financial statement reflect a true and fair view or not. Now tell me, can an auditor give his opinion without any proof? So if the auditor is saying that the financial statement do not reflect a true and fair view, it must be backed by certain proof. It must be backed by certain audit evidence, right? Otherwise, see, if auditor is not collecting any audit evidence, right, and he's just giving that opinion, will it be an expert opinion? The answer is no, right? We are giving an expert opinion on the financial statements of our clients. So that should be backed by certain kind of proof, and that proof is what? Audit evidence, right? And students, you tell me, we have studied about the various audit procedures that the auditor performs, right? Tell me, what is the purpose of performing those audit procedure? What is the purpose? Why such audit procedures are performed? Tell me. So tell me why audit procedures are performed. So Rishita is saying to give opinion on financial statement. But yes, before giving an opinion on the financial statement, auditor is going to obtain audit evidence with respect to various assertions that are appearing in the financial statements. Students, we all have understood the term assertion in our earlier chapters also, but in this chapter, we are going to discuss this term assertion again in detail. But as of now, see, when the auditor has to give his opinion on the financial statement, so he's not giving his opinion, which is limited only to the sales, or let's say to the purchases, or let's say to the assets or the liabilities. He has to give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole, right? And that will include the P&L, the balance sheet, the cash flow, fund flow, the notes, whatever the disclosures, whatever are the requirements of the, let's say in case of a company, the Companies Act, the requirement of Schedule 3, each and everything is going to come, right? Now, auditor cannot give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole unless and until he obtains audit evidence with respect to each and every aspect of the financial statement or each and every assertion that is coming in the financial statement, right? So, with respect to each and every item that is appearing in the financial statement and assertion of every item, auditor is going to perform audit procedures. He is going to obtain audit evidence. Based on the audit evidence that he obtains, let's say with respect to sales, he obtain audit evidence and he concludes that sales represent a true and fair view. Like all the assertions are properly are true and fair. Same way with respect to, let's say, assets, liabilities, with respect to each and every assertion, he is going to draw various conclusions. And based on the conclusions that he obtains with respect to various assertions, auditor is going to give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole. And as I've told you that giving an opinion should be backed by audit evidence. So our first topic that we are going to study with respect to this chapter is audit evidence, and the relevant essay is essay 500. And as I've told you, this is a very interesting and a very important chapter also. And you'll see that in this chapter, we will be covering a number of essays whereby we'll see how to obtain audit evidence with respect to, let's say, inventory, the existence and condition of inventory, how to consider that essay 501 will tell. How to obtain external confirmation, essay 505 will tell. So this way, we are going to consider how the various audit procedures the auditor can perform, right? So let me just have a look at your queries. So you are saying auditor performs audit procedures to obtain true fair view or to give reasonable assurance. Yes, so that he can gather audit evidence, right? Right. Okay. Now let us start with understanding the definition of the term audit evidence. So as I've asked you that what is meant by the term evidence, so you all have said that, ma'am, it means what? Proof. Just a minute. Proof, right? So, as per essay 500, and the name of essay is what? Audit evidence. So, easy to learn, right? So, audit evidence is the information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. Now, I hope the discussion we have just had with respect to how auditor gives his opinion, that is, he performs audit procedure with respect to various assertions, then he draws various conclusions, and based on those conclusions, he arrives at his opinion, right? I hope now that discussion is clear to all of you. So, audit evidence is the information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. Now, a number of, like, I get a number of queries from all of you that, ma'am, how to learn the definitions and how to learn the concepts. See, the thumb rule or the trick is that you need to first understand. Now, if your understanding is clear that audit evidence is some information, what is auditor going to do with that information? He is going to use that information. In what? In arriving at the conclusions. Why? On which the auditor's opinion is based. Right? So, auditor's opinion is going to be based on various conclusions that he draws. Right? You have to keep in mind this thing when you understand and when you learn this definition of term audit evidence. So, information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusion on which the auditor's opinion is based. Right? Now, tell me what, according to you, can be included in this term information. This term information is very wide. What all will be included? Just send in your replies. Information. Yes, audit evidence is, you can say, so Rajita is saying, ma'am, is audit evidence the core to form the conclusion? So audit evidence is the foundation on which your auditing is done, right? Or it is the foundation of the entire auditing process. Send in your queries. I'll just have a look at your reply. Sorry, the replies. So you are saying information can be data from financial statement. Dharini is saying, Rishita is saying accounting records. Others also please reply. So absolutely correct, right? So data, Rajita is saying, Tanvi saying about entity transactions policy. Rihanna is saying information, what are transactions controls, right? Ashish is saying transactions events. Priyanka is saying information can be both related to ICS and FSC. So we are saying that information to be used by auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. Now, this information contains the information that is contained in the accounting records underlying the financial statement and other information. So let us first try to understand this term accounting records, information contained in accounting records underlying the financial statement. So when we say underlying the financial statement, information contained in accounting record underlying the financial statement, that is all the accounting records that are used as a basis for preparing the financial statements, right? So whatever records you have used, it can be in the form of, let's say, some entries have been passed, so those general entries, some spreadsheets have been made, so those spreadsheets, let's say contracts, the invoices, all those invoices, they have been converted into entries, so all those invoices. So if you just look at this term accounting records underlying the financial statement, so the records based on which the financial statements are prepared, and it will include the records of initial accounting entries and supporting records such as the checks, records of electronic fund transfer. So students, we are on page number 4.5 of your module. The invoices, the contracts, the general subsidiary and subsidiary ledgers, the general entries, records such as worksheets, spreadsheets, supporting cost allocation, computation, reconciliation, disclosure. So whatever accounting record has been used for preparing the financial statement, that will be considered as the information to be used as audit evidence. Is it clear? Is the first point clear? Is it clear? Students, concentrate on sending, concentrate on, lecture. Do not send irrelevant text. So Rihanna Vishal is saying, yes, it is clear. So first one is what? The information that has been used in preparing the financial statement, right? And the second one is relating to other information. So what is included in other information? So students, we have understood as to whatever accounting record has been used to prepare the financial statement. So underlying the financial statement, right? Now tell me, are the minutes of meetings used to prepare the financial statements as such? Quickly send in your replies, yes or no. So the answer is no, right? Are the written confirmations that are received from trade receivables or trade payables, are these used to, prepare the financial statement? Quickly send in your replies, yes or no. So the answer is no. But can they be used as audit evidence? Can they be used? Yes, Krutarth is saying no, but helpful to the auditor. So, other information will include all that information that authenticates the accounting records and also supports the auditor's rationale behind the true and fair presentation of the financial statement. So, that authenticates, that supports the accounting records and also supports the auditor's rationale behind the true and fair presentation of the financial statement. So when auditor is going through, let's say, a certain share capital has been issued during the year. So some resolutions, some minutes of the meetings are there. So auditor is going through them. So that is going to support the auditor's rationale behind saying that the share capital has been issued in a proper way, right? So I hope you are able to understand, and supports the auditor's rationale behind the true and fair presentation of the financial statement. So let's say building ka auditor is going through the title deed of the building. So as such, you are not using that information, to prepare the financial statement. But yes, whether that building actually exists, whether the existence assertion is correct or not, auditor is going to use that title deed in order to consider that assertion. So various examples can be minutes of the meetings, written confirmation from trade receivables, trade payables, manuals containing the details of the internal control. So as such, internal control pe to we are not giving any opinion, but auditor goes through the manuals with respect to the internal control in order to consider the nature, timing, extent of his audit procedure, right? So all these other information, which though is not used as such in preparation of the financial statement, but it authenticates the accounting record. It adds a genuineness to the accounting records and also supports the auditor's rationale behind the true and fair presentation of the financial statements. So is it clear? Is it clear? IT, just please block this student na. Bhumika Gurung. Please block this student. Bhumika Gurung. ठीक है, I hope it is clear. So what all is included in information? That is the information that is contained in accounting records underlying the financial statements and the other information, right? So is it clear, students? Now, when we talk about audit evidence, another question, a very interesting question is, audit evidence can be of what type? Is it necessary that it should be in writing? Right? Is it necessary that it should be generated within the organization? So we will consider all these questions. So the various types of audit evidence, it depends upon the nature and the source of audit evidence, right? It depends upon the nature and the source of audit evidence. See, as per the nature, it can be visual, oral, or documentary. And as per the source, it can be internal or external, right? So when let us discuss these types one by one. So visual audit evidence. So when the auditor is observing the physical inventory count being conducted by the organization's personnel, it is what he's using visuals, right? So that becomes visual audit evidence. He's using his eyes to, see, as to observe as to what process has been followed when the physical inventory count has been done. So it is a visual uh, audit evidence. Then is the oral. So it can be what? When the auditor inquires the management or other various officers of the client, then it is what? Your oral audit evidence. Documentary. So let's say you're going through the manuals, you are going through, let's say, any title deed, the previous year financial statement. So these are what? Documentary audit evidence. So for example, fixed deposit certificate, loan agreement, or sales bills, these are what? In the form of documents. Simple. Then is depending upon the source. Now, without looking at the module, just tell me, uh, sales invoice, is it an internal audit evidence or is it an external audit evidence? So all of you are saying internal. ठीक है? So these are what? The sales invoices generated within the organization. So it is what? Internal audit evidence. See, students, okay, give me example of external audit evidence. Example of external audit evidence. Prem is saying sale is internal. Yes, correct. Purchase, yes, it is generated by the third party, or you can say the confirmations from, let's say, the debtors, the creditors, right? Or any confirmation from the bank. So these are what? Your external audit evidence. Now, student, if we talk about the internal audit evidence, see, these evidence are generated internally within the organization. So the staff or the management who's preparing that, preparing those evidence, so chances are there that they since they have the access to that evidence, they can manipulate that, right? So auditor needs to be careful when he's using those internal audit evidence, though it is not always the case that he has to suspect such audit evidence. But you all know that professional skepticism is what that the auditor has to apply all the times, right? Same way, when the auditor is using any external audit evidence, so he cannot just rely on that audit evidence blindly. Because see, if let's say the external party who is giving the confirmation, it is a related party. So again, auditor needs to consider the knowledge of that party who is, sending the confirmation, let's say, or he should be aware about the particulars of that party. If that is a related party, again, the skepticism will come in place, right? So internal hai, so it does not mean that always suspect that, but be alert. And same way external hai, so it does not mean that you can just rely on it blindly and you're not, checking those audit evidence, right? So basically auditor, when he's, let's say, with respect to sales, so let's say he's looking at the sales invoice, right? And it is an internal audit evidence. He can match it with an external audit evidence with this, which is what the confirmation from the debtors. So his endeavor should be to match the internal evidence and as well as the external evidence. I hope it is clear. I hope it is clear. So, one of you is saying, ma'am, is it necessary to write audit evidence? Can we write only evidence? See, students, here we are talking about audit evidence, right? The topic is what? Evidence relating to audit. So that is why we are using the term audit evidence, right? And as I always tell you that it is better that you use, the keywords that are used. So you will see that in this chapter, and in fact, in the entire audit ka syllabus, wherever audit evidence is used, the prefix or the words that are used before this word is sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, right? So try to use that. Audit evidence should always be what? Sufficient and appropriate. What is sufficiency? What is appropriateness? We'll discuss just in the later half of this chapter. Same way, whenever we say the auditor is concerned with what? Material misstatement. And you all know that misstatement can be whether due to fraud and error. So, try to consider these keywords when you are preparing, when you are understanding the subject and you are preparing it for your examinations, right? So I hope it is clear. Internal evidence audit and external audit evidence. So now when we were discussing about the internal and external audit evidence, I told you that it is not always that the auditor should doubt internal audit evidence. And it should not always be the case that the auditor is not, checking the external audit evidence. He's just blindly trusting that external audit evidence. So auditor should consider the relevance and the reliability of the audit evidence that he's using, right? So let's say with respect to checking the sales transaction, tell me what all can be the audit evidence. Tell me what all can be the audit evidence. We are checking the sales, right? So what all can be the audit evidence? So Rishita is, Dharini is saying sales invoice, Rishita is saying confirmation from debtors, Rajita is saying cash memo, Vishal is saying stock checking, Dhanush is saying order details, uh, uh, Krutarth is saying sales invoice inventory. Yes. So these are what the various kind of audit evidence that the auditor, let's say, he obtains, right? Now, whether an audit evidence is reliable, whether an audit evidence is relevant. So let me just ask you a question. So let's say the auditor has to check whether the company is having the ownership with respect to the building, right? So some building of 10 CR is appearing in the financial statements. An auditor wants to check whether the company is having the ownership with respect to that building, right? An auditor is checking the depreciation schedule. He is recalculating the depreciation, right? Or let's say he is he's conducting the physical examination as to he's inspecting that whether that building is there or not. Will it solve the purpose for which auditor is conducting the audit procedure? The purpose is to see the ownership, to check the ownership assertion. Quickly send in your replies. So Dhanush is saying no, Tanvi is saying no. So tell me, what will be the relevant audit evidence here? So when the auditor is inspecting the building, it is one of the audit procedures, some audit evidence to he is obtaining. Same way, when the auditor is calculating or recalculating the depreciation, that also is one of the audit evidence. But for this particular assertion of ownership, it is not the relevant and the it is not the relevant audit evidence. Tell me what will be the relevant audit evidence. So Rihanna is saying uh, title deed or what? Building documents, ownership of purchase right. So title deeds, right? So inspecting the title deeds will be what? The correct audit evidence, will be the correct audit procedures, right? So we as auditors, we have to see as to what is the relevant and whether that audit evidence is reliable or not. So in order to understand reliability, let us try to understand that, let's say the auditor is sending a request to the debtor that please send me the balance confirmation, that is what is the balance of my client in your books, right? Now that letter that has been sent, that has been sent to, let's say the by mistake it has been sent to the HR department of the third party, and they are not aware about the balance and all. So tell me, the letter that is received, let's say from the HR department of the third party, will it be reliable? Send in your replies. So the answer is no, because the person who is sending the reply, he is not having the knowledge of the concerned matter, right? So auditor has to consider what? The relevance as well as the reliability of the audit evidence that he has to obtain. So types of audit evidence we have done, and then is relevance and reliability of audit evidence. So see, the quality of an audit evidence, it is affected by both the things, relevance as well as reliability, right? So we have understood the meaning of relevant, being relevant and reliable in a very, uh, normal common language. So let us just have a look at the technical, or you can say the definitions that are given by SA 500. So relevance means a logical connection with or bearing upon the purpose of the audit procedure. So what was my purpose of the audit procedure? To check the ownership. So is my audit, the audit evidence that I have obtained, was it having a logical connection with that audit procedure? Answer is no, right? Or where appropriate, the assertion under consideration. So the assertion was what? To check the ownership, right? But I was recalculating the depreciation. I was inspecting the building, and vis-a-vis, if I would have, gone through the title deed, that would have given me a comfort with respect to the ownership assertion, right? Is it clear? Is it clear? So this is the meaning of the term relevant, and being reliable is what? Information to be used at audit evidence should be reliable. And see, the reliability depends upon the source and the nature. Tell me, is internal audit evidence more reliable or external? Just send in your replies. Which one is more reliable, internal or external? Just a minute. So you are saying external is more reliable. ठीक है? Priyanka, check your answer. My question was, which evidence is more reliable? Is internally generated evidence more reliable or externally generated evidence? So see, internally generated evidence can always be manipulated. So if auditor has like an option as to whether, suppose with respect to particular transaction, he can have an internal audit evidence and external audit evidence. So external audit evidence is going to be more reliable, right? Because the third party might not have any intention to manipulate that evidence, right? Yes, he will have to consider whether the third party is related or not and other circumstances, right? So auditor will consider that. Same way the nature. So oral confirmations responses from the management are more reliable or the written one or the written confirmation. So Rishita is saying written. Others also please reply. Everyone is saying Prem, Himmat, Krutat, everyone is saying written. Naveen, Tanvi, correct, right? So the reliability of the audit evidence, it will depend upon the source and the nature and the circumstances under which it is obtained, including the controls over its preparation and maintenance where relevant. So when we say the circumstances under which it is obtained, so let's say auditor is obtaining any audit evidence from a third party, but that third party, let's say it is a related party. So in that case, auditor will have to see whether which of the audit evidence will be more reliable, right? Same way it says, including the control over its preparation. So here we are talking about what? Controls over its preparation. So we are talking about internal audit evidence. So internal audit evidence will be more reliable if the controls, the internal controls that have been implemented with respect to that audit evidence, the process by which that audit evidence is generated, if that process is that internal control is effective, right? So reliability depends upon various things like the source, the nature, the circumstances and under which it has been obtained, and the controls over its preparation and maintenance where relevant, right? So the various examples, so it says that information from independent external source may not be reliable if the source is not knowledgeable or if the management expert lacks objectivity. So it basically says, let's say the management has considered the services of a legal expert in order to see as to whether the provisions are to be made or the same is to be shown as contingent liability or as to see what is the status of the litigation, right? Now, if let's say that legal expert is not objective, that is, it is unbiased, right? That is, it is what? Unbiased. It is not objective. So in that case, though the audit evidence that the auditor will obtain by communicating with that legal expert, that is going to be what? External. But since the management's expert, who is the management expert in this case? The legal counsel. So they lack objectivity. That is, they are not unbiased. They are biased. So in that case, auditor will have to consider the reliability, right? So otherwise, if you just see, the reliability of the audit evidence increases when it is obtained from independent sources, when the controls are effective, if we talk about the internally generated audit evidence, if it is obtained directly by the auditor. So let's say auditor sends an external confirmation to the debtors, and it is mentioned that the debtors are required to send it directly to the auditor. Vis-a-vis a situation whereby the debtors first send the reply to the client and then the client hand over the replies to the auditor. Tell me, in which situation the reliability will be more? Is it first or second? In the first situation, the auditor sends the confirmation to the third parties, the debtors, creditors, and asks them to send it directly to the auditor, right? So these are coming directly to the auditor. In the second situation, these are first coming to the management and then to the auditor. So tell me, so first situation, right? So absolutely correct, right? right? Then the reliability of audit evidence received increases when it is obtained in documentary form. That is when it is not as compared to what the oral inquiries are, and if it is provided by original documents. So the original document vis-a-vis a photocopy. So obviously the reliability is more with respect to the original documents. So I hope you are finding these topics very easy. Let me just take you through the module once in order to just make you familiar with these topics. So, see, we started with understanding audit evidence, right? So basically, this paragraph says, page number of this is what 4.4, it basically says that auditing is a logical process, right? An auditor just cannot give his opinion on the financial statement like that. He has to see the actualities of the situation. He has to review the financial statement, right? And he cannot give his opinion on the financial statement unless and until he examines them objectively. Objectively is what? Without any bias, right? So there should be critical, detailed analysis, examination, scrutiny of the accounting statements, and what will the repercussions if the auditor is not conducting the audit objectively. So it may lead to legal action with consequential loss of professional standing and prestige of the auditor. So he needs to obtain what? Audit evidence for arriving at his judgment. And as per SA 500. So this is a thing that we have not covered. So as I always tell that every essay has the objective, the responsibility, the requirements for the auditor. So the objective of the auditor as per SA 500 is to design and perform audit procedures in such a way to enable the auditor to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to draw reasonable conclusions on which to base the auditor's opinion. So students, just very minute things. If you'll just see, these are what? Conclusions, the plural form, because auditor draws a number of conclusions with respect to various assertions in the financial statement, and opinion to only one opinion at the end is given. So that is why it is what? Auditor's opinion, Hana. So what is the objective of the auditor as per SA 500? To design and perform audit procedures in such a way so as to obtain audit evidence to draw reasonable conclusions on which to base auditor's opinion. Now, as all of you, like many of you always ask me, ma'am, how to learn. So see, how I would have learned this is, so I would have written here to design. So just a minute, I'll just take you through my sheet. Just a minute. So I would have written to design and perform audit procedures, right? Why? So as to obtain what? Audit evidence. And we all know audit evidence is always sufficient and appropriate, right? And then why? So as to draw reasonable conclusions. Conclusions. Why? So as to base his auditor's opinion. Now, these are the keywords that should come when you're writing the objective as per SA 500. The connecting language can be yours, but these are the keywords that should be there. And if you just apply some logical thinking now, that first of all, auditor is going to design and perform audit procedures. Based on that, he's going to obtain, and now you all know that audit evidence se pehle sufficient and appropriate you are supposed to write, right? So sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Why? To draw reasonable conclusions. You all know conclusions, and then based on which the audit opinion will be there, right? So I hope you are able to understand as to how to learn also. Okay? So this is the definition of audit evidence as per SA 500, and what all is included. So a 3 or 4 mark question can always come from here as to what all is included in this information, right? Types of audit evidence are very simple and a very interesting topic also. So the various examples of internal and external evidence has been given there, and it is saying, see, the external evidence is generally considered to be more reliable as they come from third parties who are not normally interested in manipulation of the accounting information to others. However, if the auditor has reason to doubt the independence of third party who has provided any material evidence, example, the invoice of an associated concern, that is a related party, right? He should exercise greater vigilance. So ordinary rule is what the auditor should try to match internal audit evidence and external audit evidence as far as practicable. So here I gave you example of what sales is related. So sales invoice as an internal audit evidence, and let's say the external confirmation from the trade debtors. So auditor can match them. Is it clear? So do this illustration 1 and 2 as homework. Then we did relevance and reliability. Relevance is what? The logical connection with or bearing upon the purpose of audit procedures and the assertion. So here I gave you example of building. So I want all of you to, write here as example. So I don't remember the name of the student, but she was saying that, ma'am, in the session, the concepts are understood, but when we read the module, the understanding is gone. So that should not happen. So write here what we are discussing. Just write the keywords in your own language, the examples that I'm giving you, right? And as in the last session also, I've told you that after the session ends today itself, you should go through the module, right? So your understanding will be intact in that case, right? And the reliability of information to be used, it is influenced by the source, the nature, the circumstances under which it is obtained, and the control. So I've circled the 4 keywords, right? But yes, the connecting language should also be proper, but I'm sure that you'll be able to write that on your own. So concentrate on, devote your energies towards learning these what keywords. Okay. So this is about reliability. So reliability of information is we have seen, right? And this is while recognizing the exceptions makes this generalization are what? So reliability is increased when it is received from obtained from independent source, when the related controls are effected, when it is obtained directly by the auditor, when it is in documentary form, and when these are in original document. So there is a this is the word used, facsimiles, which means photocopies, right? Copies, right? So I hope it is clear. Tell me till here, that is page number 4.11. I hope the concept is clear to all of you. Yes, Himmat is saying, ma'am, how do we decide as to whether the audit evidence is sufficient and appropriate? We'll do this topic just now. Just the next topic is going to be this only. So Tanvi saying clear, Vishal saying clear, Dharini saying understood, Priyanka saying clear. Others also please reply. Nagaraj saying clear. Chalo, good. Okay. Now, my next question to you. So tell me, what do you understand by the term sufficiency or sufficient? Do not look at the module. Try to answer it on your own. Try to answer it on your own. So quantity of audit evidence, and what is meant by the term appropriate? Send in your replies. So quality. Himmat is saying, Prem is saying quality. Correct. Right? So students, see, whenever you must have seen that whenever we have understood, we have discussed about audit evidence in the earlier chapters discussion also, I've always said that auditor should obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay? So that audit evidence should be sufficient and appropriate. And sufficiency means that the quantity of that audit evidence should be enough, and appropriateness is with respect to the quality of the audit evidence. Now, there was a query of one of the students. So I'll be discussing sufficiency and appropriateness in detail. So the query was that how we are going to decide as to whether a particular audit evidence is sufficient and appropriate. So it depends upon auditors dash. Tell me what should be the answer. By applying, what auditor is going to consider the sufficiency and appropriateness? Dharini, you are absolutely correct. Others also please reply. So it depends upon auditors. Shifa, you are absolutely correct. It depends upon auditors' professional judgment. See, student, when the auditor conducts the audit with the passage of all the audits that he conducts, with the experience, with the professional knowledge that he or she has, so by applying the auditor's professional judgment, he or she is able to understand whether that particular audit evidence is sufficient and appropriate or not, right? So auditor, and there are various factors that are going to affect the auditor's professional judgment. See, tell me, just you yourself will be able to give me the correct answer. Tell me, if the risk of material misstatement is high and you or the auditor apply your professional judgment, tell me, will you obtain more audit evidence or less? When the risk of material misstatement assessed by you under SA 315 is high, you are going to obtain more audit evidence or less. So Dhanush is saying more, Dharini is saying more, Rishita, Jesh. See, I'm not able to take names of all the answers, all the students, but you are saying yes. So have you applied in that your professional judgment? Right. So let's say if any material assertion is there, right? Any assertion is there which is really very, very material. Tell me, are you going to obtain more audit evidence or less? You just write second and more or less. So Dharini, more. Krutarth saying more. Others also please reply. Rishita, Tanvi saying more. Dhanush, Rajita, absolutely correct, right? So what have you applied? Your professional judgment only, right? So there will be various factors that we are just going to discuss, but I hope whose query was this? Uh, Yes, Himmat, you are correct. I'll come to this point also. I think it was whose query who was saying that, ma'am, how to see whether the audit evidence is sufficient and appropriate. So I hope whosoever query was it, it is clear now. It is clear now. Yes, it was Himmat's query only. ठीक है. ठीक है. So it depends upon auditor's professional judgment. Now let us see as to what is meant by sufficiency and appropriateness. So sufficiency means the sufficiency is a measure of quantity of audit evidence, and appropriateness is the measure of quality of audit evidence, right? ठीक है. So sufficiency is the measure of quantity of audit evidence, and appropriateness is the measure of quality of audit evidence. So when we as auditors, we are obtaining audit evidence with respect to any assertion, let's say with respect to sales, whether that sale is measured properly or not, right? So we have to see whether that audit evidence is sufficient, quantity is sufficient or not, and the appropriateness, the quality is sufficient or not, right? Now, whether an audit evidence, the quantity is sufficient or not, so sufficiency is affected by the auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement. So sufficiency means quantity. That is either audit evidence, one audit evidence is enough or not, or two audit evidence are to be obtained with respect to one particular assertion. So auditor will consider that. So let's say with respect to any of the debtors. So auditor has obtained an external confirmation from the debtors, right? So this is one audit evidence. But now, after going through that confirmation, auditor is still not satisfied, let's say, with respect to that, he is not able to get that comfort with respect to that particular debtor balance. So auditor may ask the management that management, you give me in writing that whatever is the situation. So auditor may ask the management to give it to in writing to the auditor. So this is what a written representation from the management. So we are going to study this also, SA 580 we are going to study. So this is like in this situation, auditor has obtained what? Two audit evidence, right? So how has auditor decided? He applied his professional judgment. So the factors that are going to affect as to whether the quantity is enough or not. So auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement. If the assessed risk of material misstatement is high, more audit evidence will be obtained. Second is quality of audit evidence. So see, if the quality is good, maybe less audit evidence will be required. So let's say with respect to fixed deposits with the bank, right? So if the fixed deposit certificate from the bank is there, the FDR receipt from the bank is there, the quality is very high na, with respect to that particular assertion for fixed deposit, right? So or that since quality is high, so maybe only that audit evidence is sufficient. So less may be required, right? Is it clear? But see, vice versa will not hold good, right? You cannot say that the quantity is very high, so I'll compromise with the quality. That cannot be done, right? Is it clear? So, as we have discussed that there are various factors that may affect the auditor's judgment as to sufficiency of audit evidence. So, more is the materiality. Tell me the essay number with respect to materiality. Essay 320, correct. I'm also getting essay 300, so I always tell you not to write incorrect numbers. Essay 300 is with respect to planning, 320 is with respect to your materiality, right? So if the assertion which is to be checked or with respect to with the audit evidence is to be obtained, that is material. So with respect to that, more audit evidence will be obtained. Same way, the risk of material misstatement as assessed by the auditor is high, he is going to obtain more audit evidence, right? The size and characteristics of population. See, student, if there is a, let's say, small population and homogeneous. So what is meant by homogeneous? So homogeneous basically means similar kind of population, right? So let's say there are 10,000 sales transactions and the sum is the total amount of these like individual sales transaction is from ranging from 15,000 to 20,000. So what can auditor do? He may select a small sample and based on that sample, he may do the audit procedures and he may project the result of the audit procedures on the which he has obtained for the sample on the entire population of the sales transaction, right? So when I say small and homogeneous, similar population, vis-a-vis take a situation, let's say where there are 10,000 or 20,000 transaction, but there is difference of the amount, wide difference between the amount of various transactions. Like some transactions are ranging from 15,000 to 20,000, some are ranging from 1 lakh to 2 lakh, some are ranging from 10 lakh to 15 lakh. So here auditor will have to obtain a sample from each kind of group. So we can say that where the population is small and similar, auditor may obtain less or less audit evidence will be sufficient. But where the population that is to be tested, population is what? Like the sales transaction in our case. So if it is large and heterogeneous, heterogeneous is what? Different, right? So in that case, the audit evidence that is to be obtained is what? More. Is it clear? Is it clear? Let me just take you through the module for the explanation of these three. So materiality we have seen. So it's so first of all it says, so this is on page number 4.13. So significance of the classes of transactions. Account balance presentation disclosure to the users. So less audit evidence would be required in case assertions are less material to users of financial statement. But on the other hand, if assertions are more material to the users of financial statement, more audit evidence will be required. So now how I would have made notes is, first of all, what is given? The materiality definition. So I know that definition of materiality is to be given. Then I would have written here that less material, less audit evidence, and more material, more audit evidence. So this is the way you can always make your notes, right? So this is material, right? Risk of material misstatement. So it may be, you all know risk of material misstatement means the risk that the financial statement are materially misstated prior to audit, and it consists of inherent risk and control risk. So this is our understanding of chapter number 3. Now, less audit evidence will be required if there is lower risk of material misstatement. And on the other hand, if assertions have a higher risk of material misstatement, more audit evidence would be required. Is it clear? Size and characteristic. It refers to the number of items included in the population. Less audit evidence would be required in case of smaller, more homogeneous population. Homogeneous is what? Similar, right? But on the other hand, in case of larger, more heterogeneous, what is meant by heterogeneous? It means different, right? So more audit evidence would be required. Is it clear? Is it clear, students? Okay. Now, tell me, what can be the various sources of audit evidence? From where can I obtain various audit evidence? So we have discussed about the sufficiency, appropriateness, the nature, the in fact source also to some extent. So how an auditor can obtain audit evidence? So you may mention very obvious answers also that we have discussed a number of times, because there is a topic which I want to quickly do with you as to what can be the various sources from where the audit evidence can be obtained. Dhanush is saying absolutely clear, so that's good. External, internal sources, right? See, Jaishnavi is saying, how can we decide the quality high or low? So we have seen now quality of the audit evidence, it depends upon the relevance and reliability of the audit evidence, right? So whether that audit evidence is reliable or not. So if it is external audit evidence, so I gave you example of what fixed deposit receipt. So it is a very appropriate audit evidence with respect to the fixed deposits. So it depends upon what the relevance and reliability of the audit evidence. Jaishnavi, is your doubt clear? Okay. Now, students, I'll ask you few things. You just give me answers as one, yes or no, right? So tell me, can auditor obtain audit evidence by performing audit procedures? Write one, yes or no, by performing audit procedures. Yes. So all of you are saying yes. Now, from now onwards, next question me, you need to write two and then yes. Tell me, can auditor obtain audit evidence, or can he use the audit evidence that he has obtained in the previous year audit? Write two and your yes or no. So the answer is yes. Kutat, Rishita, Sunil, Banu, Priyanka, everyone is saying yes. Dharini, Tanvi, Nagaraj, everyone is saying yes. Absolutely correct. Okay. Can auditor obtain audit evidence by inspecting the accounting records? Write three and your answer. Correct. Yes. Okay. Now tell me fourth, if let's say any management expert's work has been used, let's say any civil engineer or any legal expert work has been used, can auditor use that also as an audit evidence? Write four, yes or no. So you all are writing yes. ठीक है. So this is one concept. Now tell me, let's say there is like I ask the management, that management, with respect to this particular debtor, please give this to me in writing that this is the balance, because I'm not getting an external confirmation from this particular debtor. And then management says that no, I cannot give. So can I say that absence of information, will it also constitute audit evidence? Quickly send in your replies. Absence of information, will it constitute audit evidence? So Rishita, Jaishnavi, Rajita, Krutarth. So here I am getting certain no also and certain yes also. So now let us this topic, which is a very interesting topic, page number 4.12. Obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence by the auditor. So first and foremost, auditor obtains audit evidence by performing what? The audit procedures. You all know, okay? Now, audit evidence includes information that is received from other sources, such as from previous audit. So you all have an understanding. We have had a good discussion with respect to this in our early chapter also, with respect to internal control, that whether that audit evidence can be used or not, right? In addition, the other sources can be inside or outside the entity, and the accounting records also act as a source of audit evidence. So by performing audit procedures using the work of previous audit, then accounting records and your inside outside sources of the uh, entity, that can also provide the audit evidence, right? And information that may be used as audit evidence may have been prepared using the work of management expert. So if the work of management expert has been used, that also constitute, that can be used as audit evidence, right? Now, students, audit evidence comprises both information that supports and corroborates management assertion and any information that contradicts that assertion. So a very important line, this line and the next line, right? So this is on page number 4.12. So see, let's say if management assertion is what? Let's say management has mentioned in the financial statement, has represented in the financial statement that the building, let's say the depreciation is 2 lakhs, right? Or let's say, let's take example of sales. So let's say the sales is 5 lakhs, right? But when you look at the sales ledger, you find that the sales are actually rupees 6 lakh. So management assertion is what? Sales of 5 lakh. Now the audit evidence that you have obtained, it basically, it is not supporting the management assertion, because management assertion is what? That sale is 5 lakh. But the evidence that you have obtained, the information that you have obtained, it is contradicting that assertion. So audit evidence is going to include everything that supports management assertion. So if auditor would have obtained audit evidence with respect to sales, that is, it is actually 5 lakh, it would have supported management assertion, that will constitute audit evidence. If in the other situation, auditor has obtained an audit evidence of 6 lakhs as sales, however, management has asserted. So when I say means management has mentioned or represented in the financial statement in the P&L that the sales is 5 lakhs, but the audit evidence obtained is what? 6 lakh. So though it is contradicting the management assertion, it is not supporting the management assertion, yet it is what? Audit evidence, right? Same way, in addition, the next paragraph says, very important, in some cases, the absence of information, for example, management's refusal to provide the requested representation, is used by the auditor and also constitutes audit evidence. See, when management is saying, see, we have given you each and everything, we cannot give this to you in writing. Apply professional skepticism. Be alert all the time. Why management is saying so? Why management is not in a position to give us something in writing which we want as an audit evidence? So if absence of something is there, so absence of information, and this is a very good example, that is management is refusing to give you a requested representation, it would also constitute as an audit evidence. Is it clear? Is it clear? So this was the topic that I want to discuss. Apart from this, you can just have a reading. You can just give a reading to this. So management expert, I'll discuss once again. Whose doubt is this? Himmat, I'll discuss this topic again when it is just going to come in the next 2-3 pages. Otherwise, is it clear? Dhanush, what do you want me to repeat? So Dhanush is saying, ma'am, if the management has manipulated, that would also become reason for disagreeing of providing information. So that is what the auditor has to see now, that whether management has, whether there is any misstatement, whether intentionally, whether unintentionally, that is whether by way of fraud or mistake. So that is what the auditor has to consider. And corroborates, Gayatri, it means supports. Corroborate means supports. See, it will be an audit evidence. Now, see, if management is not giving me any audit evidence, so I'll write in my working papers that I asked for the balance confirmation with respect to, let's say, a debtor, which constitutes 80% of the total debtors. But management is saying that I cannot give this to you in writing. So when I have to give my opinion, let's say the auditor concludes that the financial statement do not reflect a true and fair view, then this becomes one of the audit evidence now, that management also refused to provide me with the written representation with respect to this particular debtor, which constitute 80% of the total debtor. Is it clear, Dhanush? So absence is what I'm going to write it in my working papers now, that this is the inquiry that was made and this was the response from the management. So this way it becomes audit evidence. Dhanush, is it clear? Gayatri, is your doubt clear? Tell me, is it clear? Gayatri is saying yes, Dhanush is saying yes. Others also please reply if there is any doubt. चलो ठीक है, good. ठीक है. So now we have seen that auditor obtains maximum of his audit evidence by performing what audit procedures. So now is the next topic that we are going to do is what your audit procedures, right? So students, I hope you are familiar with this chart because we have discussed this a number of times when we were doing our chapter number 3, right? So the audit procedures to obtain audit evidence. So auditor performs audit procedures, and such audit procedures are what I have told you earlier also. Like the mnemonic that you may learn is ICAI ORR. So I stands for inspection, C stands for external confirmation, A stands for analytical procedure, I stands for inquiry, O stands for observation, R stands for recalculation, and R stands for reperformance, right? So these are the basic audit procedures that the auditor performs during the course of audit when he has to obtain, by performing these procedures, he has to obtain audit evidence, right? And we all have a detailed discussion that the audit procedures are more or less going to be the same, but the context in which they are performed. So whether auditor is performing those audit procedures, to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and environment. Please tell me the essay number here that I should write here where I have written risk assessment procedures. Frame correct. Others also please reply. See, I was expecting, a number of correct answers here because this is one of repeatedly asked questions from my side. Rishita, correct. Others also please reply. So SA 315, right? Tanvi, correct. Okay. So the audit procedures are going to be the same, more or less the same, but the context in which the auditor is performing those procedures will determine whether these are risk assessment procedures or your further audit procedures. Now tell me the SA number here. So you may write 2 and the number. Under which SA auditor responses to the assessed risk? Rishita, correct. Others? Tanvi, correct. SA 330. ठीक है. Prem, correct. ठीक है. So again, the procedures are going to be the same, but the context in which these have been used will determine whether these are risk assessment procedures or the further audit procedures, right? So when auditor identifies and assesses the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment under SA 315, such procedures are called your risk assessment procedures. And in response to such assessment of risk of material misstatement, auditor responds to such risk under SA 330 by performing various procedures, that is all these procedures. If you remember, under risk assessment procedures, we have seen that inspection will come, observation will come, analytical procedures will come, inquiry will come. These procedures will come, right? But when we talk about further audit procedures, all of these procedures are going to come. So we are going to discuss all these procedures one by one. So first is what? Inspection. Tell me what according to you is meant by inspection. Can inspection be done of only the records, or it can be done with respect to assets also? Both correct. Gayatri, Dharani, Krutarth, Rajita, Rishita, correct, right? So first and foremost, the audit evidence that the auditor can perform is what? Inspection. Okay. So let me just take you through the module. So students, till page number 4.15, we have covered in entirety the examples or the illustrations that please cover as homework. In case any doubt you have, we can always discuss them in the next sessions that will come for this chapter. So inspection. So when I am examining the records or documents, so let's say I am going through the previous year financial statements, I'm inspecting them. I'm inspecting the manuals of internal control, right? Let's say I'm inspecting the title deeds of property. I'm reading, I'm perusing, reading the title deed. So what I'm doing, I'm inspecting the documents or records, right? It can be internal or it can be external. So let's say I'm going through any of the external party confirmation. I'm going through any of the, external contracts, right? So it can be internal, it can be external. It can be in paper form or electronic form or any other media, right? Or it also includes what? Physical examination of an asset. So I'm inspecting a building. I'm inspecting the factory. So this is what? Inspection, right? So an inspection, example of inspection used as part of test of control is inspection of records for evidence of authorization. So let's say, so we have seen that auditor may perform the audit procedure whether for as risk assessment procedure, whether as test of control, or whether as substantive procedures. Okay. So this example is with respect to test of control. So let's say one of the internal controls is that any of the invoice that is to be passed. So let's say traveling invoice is to be passed. It should be signed by two authorized signatory. So how can I check that? I can just have a look at that document and I'll see whether signatures of two authorized persons are there or not, right? So that so it says that test of control is inspection of records for evidence of authorization, right? So tell me, when I'm inspecting the building, am I able to understand the ownership possession of that building? Yes or no? We have now done this question a number of times. See, why I'm getting yes to this answer. My question is, I'll repeat it. When I'm inspecting a building, ठीक है? When I'm inspecting the building, that the building is there. So can I be sure about the ownership of that building? Or for ownership, I need to inspect the title deed. ठीक है अब I hope my question is clear because now I'm getting right answers. Yes, Prem Kumar is saying title deed is required, right? So it basically says that when you have to when you are conducting the inspection as the audit procedure, you will have to consider as to what assertion you actually want to check, right? So it basically says inspection of intangible assets may provide reliable audit evidence with respect to their existence. So when I'm looking at the building, I can see that this building actually exists, that structure is there. But how will I be able to understand the rights and obligations, that whether the company is having the right over that building? So, but not necessarily about the entity's rights and obligation or valuation of the asset. And in fact, the valuation also. So for the valuation, I'll have to recalculate the depreciation, or maybe I'll have to inspect the depreciation schedule, right? But inspecting the building will not give me the comfort with respect to the ownership assertion and the valuation assertion. Is it clear? Is it clear? Is the term inspection clear to all of you? So Dharini, Krutarth, Prem, no worries, Rishita. Gayatri, Tanvi, everyone is saying clear. Okay, so this is what inspection and inspection. So now if I just talk about the keywords. So let's say you get a 3 or 4 mark question and you are supposed to write on inspection as one of the audit procedures, right? So maybe you are given a situation that is the auditor is going through the documents. So what audit procedure is he performing? Explain in detail. Let's say you get this question, right? So first and foremost, see what all is going to go. Inspection may examining records or documents or physical examination of asset, right? Documents made can be internal, external, paper, electronic form or other media, right? And one more thing you can also write that when we are inspecting the documents, right? So whether that outcome of inspection process is reliable or not, it is going to depend upon the nature and source of the document that we are inspecting. So whether is it an internal document, and if it is an internal document, over the controls. So whether the controls over that internal document are good or not, right? And this example you may give, and then this thing that inspection will give you audit evidence with respect to existence, but not necessarily with respect to ownership and the valuation assertion. Is it clear? Just read this illustration number 4. Page number 4.16. So Sejal is saying that, ma'am, please upload the notes for chapter number 3. So that will be done today, or just check whether it is done or not. Because today, by today evening, you will get all the notes and questions. And notes I've given in the PPT format. Sejal, is it fine? So while auditing the books of accounts of AB Limited for the financial year 22-23, the auditor of the company used an audit procedure according to which complete documents and records of the company were checked in detail in order to obtain audit evidence. So it says complete documents and records of the company were checked in detail, right? Explain the audit procedure used by the auditor of Extremely Distinct Limited. So what is it? It is inspection of documents. Is it clear? Is it clear? students, is it clear? Let me just share the other file. Yeah. No, I'm sharing the other file. Students, is it clear? Just give me a minute. So now tell me, what do you understand by the term observation? Observation. See, it basically means looking at the process or procedure being performed by others. Looking at the process or procedure being performed by others. So, to observe something work done by others, Himmat is saying, and Rajita is saying it is one of the procedures. Correct. So, just so observation. So observation, it consists of looking at the process or procedure being performed by others, right? For example, the auditor's observation of inventory counting by the entity's personnel or of personnel or of performance of control activities, right? So when the auditor is looking at the process of inventory count, see, conducting the physical inventory count is the responsibility of the organization. It is the responsibility of the client organization. But what will auditor do? He'll attend that physical inventory count and he'll observe whether that physical inventory count conducted by the client's organization is proper or not, right? And another example can be, let's say, various internal controls have been implemented. So auditor may just observe as to whether such internal controls, let's say these are automated internal control. So whether these are being, you know, these are working effectively or not, right? But if you remember, when we were discussing it last time, I told you that it suffers from one of the limitation. What is that limitation? That limitation is that, see, suppose I'm observing you, you are giving some paper, right? And you are aware as to the fact that I'm observing you. So will it affect your attitude, yes or no, of giving the paper? Quickly send in your replies. Yes, Hana, you may not cheat, you may not look here and there, and you may just do your work. So one of the limitation that it suffers, the observation as a process suffers, is that it is limited to the point in time at which observation takes place. And by the fact that the act is being observed may affect the process or how the procedure is being performed. Is it clear? Is it clear? Observation. So we have done two audit procedures, inspection and observation. And see, students, I'm trying to, cover certain topics from the module also. Why? Because I want all of you to understand as to how from the module, how to highlight the keywords, and how to prepare from the module, because this is the base for your exams, right? So we will do one thing here. We will take a break of 15 minutes. And after the break, I'll start with the third audit procedure, which is what? External confirmation. So a break of 15 minutes here. Okay, Divya. Okay. So welcome back, students, after the break. So we were discussing about the various type of audit procedures whereby we have had a discussion with respect to your inspection and observation, right? Then is your external confirmation. So students, we are going to study external confirmation in detail when we are going to do, just a minute, essay 505. But for the purpose of understanding these audit procedure, let me just discuss this in short. So external confirmation, see, when let's say with respect to the debtor's balance or the creditor's balance, when the auditor has to, confirm as to what is the balance or what are the terms and conditions with respect to a particular sales. So auditor may send a confirmation, a request letter to the third party. Third party can be debtors, creditors, and such confirmation request would include as to tell me what is the balance of my client in your books of account, or tell me whether the balance of my client is 5 lakhs in your books of account. So it can be either ways. Then there can be, apart from confirming the balance, there can be a confirmation with respect to the terms and conditions, right? With respect to whether there exist any side agreements or not, right? So all these confirmations auditor may ask. There can be positive confirmation request. There can be negative confirmation request that we are going to consider, that we are going to discuss in detail when we will be doing essay 505 in detail, right? So for the purpose of understanding the audit procedure, just try to understand that when the auditor has to obtain an audit evidence, let's say with respect to any balance that involve a third party. So auditor may send a request letter to that third party that please confirm me the following with respect to my client. And that response is received directly by the auditor. So if you remember when we did about the reliability of the audit evidence, so this response is received directly by the auditor. It will not happen that first it will be received by the management and then the same will be given to the auditor. So it will be received directly by the auditor. So if you just have a look at the definition of this term, you will see that external confirmation represents audit evidence obtained by the auditor as a very, very important direct written response to the auditor from a third party in paper or electronic form or any other media, right? So rest we'll be discussing this in detail when we will be doing essay 505. Now the fourth one is what recalculation. So this is really very simple. So with respect to, let's say, your depreciation, so auditor may recalculate it. So basically checking the mathematical accuracy of documents or records, it may be performed manually or electronically, right? So auditor may recalculate the depreciation amounts, auditor may recalculate, let's say, the interest amounts, right? The provisions. So auditor may recalculate them. Then the fifth one is what? Reperformance. So when any of the process that has already been performed as a part of the entity's internal control, right? And now the auditor is reperforming that process, independent execution of that process by the auditor, that is called reperformance. So if you remember, I always give example of BRS, bank reconciliation statements. So when the client organization is preparing the BRS with respect to the various bank accounts, this is an example of internal control that has been implemented by that client organization, right? Now, auditor may reperform it. Auditor may also make BRS in order to see whether such accounts are shown properly or not. So, what is reperformance? It involves in auditors' independent execution of procedures or controls that were originally performed as entities' internal control. So, reperforming the reconciliation of bank statement or reperforming the aging of accounting receivable. So, let's say one of the system of the client is such that the aging, the with respect to the debtor balances, the aging report is automatically generated, right? Now, auditor may reperform it, or auditor may, use some other, you can say, some other dummy ID in order to see whether correct report is being generated or not. So, reperforming, right? So, we have covered five procedures, that is inspection, observation, external confirmation, recalculation, and reperformance. And now is analytical procedures. Quickly tell me the essay number that is there with respect to analytical procedures. Quickly send in your replies. See, why I always ask you these questions, because this will show you as to whether you are actually devoting time in, going through the module or our sessions after we have a discussion with respect to a particular topic. So Rishita is correct. Others also please reply. So this is essay. I'm not getting other replies. So why I'm getting wrong answers? So 320 is relating to materiality, right? So this is essay 520. Nagaraj is correct. Essay 520, right? So what is analytical procedure? Again, we'll be doing this in detail at the end part of this session. But for the purpose of understanding the procedure, see, the auditor may make certain evaluations with respect to the financial data that is there, and he may also see the relationship between the financial data as well as the non-financial data. Basically, analytical procedure is, for example, let's say auditor calculates the GP ratio, the gross profit ratio of the client organization, and then he compares it with the earlier years. He just compares it with the similar companies, with the different companies in the similar industry, right? So he's comparing the trend year on year basis and also with the similar industry. What are the other companies in the similar industry generating, right? So he is analyzing that data, right? So, or let's say he just, instead of, let's say the company is paying certain rent, right? Instead of going through all the documents, he just calculates that, okay, 50,000 is the rent for 12 months, it has been paid. So, so much should be the amount. So this is an example of reasonableness test, which we will be doing later on in detail. So these are what he's just analyzing the data. He's considering the relationship between the financial data and the non-financial data. So that is what is called analytical procedures. But later on, we'll be doing this in detail when we will be covering essay 520 as the last essay of this chapter, right? And then the last audit procedures that we have to cover is what? Your inquiry. And tell me, is inquiry alone sufficient for the auditor? Send in a reply. So answers are no, which are the answer is absolutely correct, right? So inquiry. So when the auditor has to obtain any, or let's say when the auditor has to start any audit, so auditor will, first and foremost, he can always inquire with the management. Okay, management tell us about the wages, the important transactions, significant transactions during the year. Or let's say with respect to internal control, management tell me how the internal control works, right? So this is what inquiry. So if we consider inquiry as one of the audit procedure that provides sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, so फिर तो audit work is going to be very easy. Why? Because auditor will inquire the management tell me whether sales are okay or not, management will say yes. Whether purchases are okay or not, management will say yes. Whether assets, liabilities, everything is okay or not, management response will be yes, I'll give my opinion. But this is not going to happen, right? So inquiry as a process, as an audit procedure, it is to be used in combination with other audit procedures. It can be inspection. So let's say if I ask the management, is this building owned by the company? Management say yes. So this is a response to one of the inquiries that I have made to the management. But I can combine it with, let's say, inspection. So whereby I'll be inspecting, let's say, the building as well as the document, the title deed, right? In order to see, okay, whether that building actually is there, and then along with that inspection of the title deed, right? So inquiry is to be used in combination with the other audit procedures, right? So tell me, will you inquire the peon of the company, or will you inquire the knowledgeable person? So answer is obviously the knowledgeable persons. So inquiry consists of seeking information of knowledgeable persons, both financial and non-financial, right? Within entity or outside the entity. and it is used extensively throughout the audit, but very, very important. In addition to other audit procedures, and these can be formal written inquiries or informal oral inquiries. Is it clear? Right? Is it clear? And inquiry alone will not provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence. I hope this is also clear to all of you. So you can just have a read to this paragraph from your module. This is very simple. You are going to understand this. And this is, this paragraph 1.7.2, it beautifully explains the, summary of the audit procedures. Just have a look at this paragraph. This is on page number 4.19. The audit procedures, inspection, observation, confirmation, recalculation, reperformance, analytical procedures, often in combination in addition with inquiry, may be used as risk assessment procedures, test of controls, substantive procedures, depending upon the context in which they are applied. Right? So audit procedures are going to be the same, but the context, why are you performing such audit procedure, will determine whether these are risk assessment procedures or these are test of controls or those are substantive procedures, right? And the audit evidence that the auditor has obtained in previous auditor may use that, but yes, he has to establish what? Continuing relevance, that we have already done in our earlier session, right? So this was with respect to the various audit procedures that the auditor performs, and I told you how to learn it. You can always learn it like ICAI, ORR. The option is up to you. So I hope these procedures are clear to all of you. So inspection, confirmation, analytical procedures, inquiry, observation, recalculation, and reperformance. Is it clear? Are we good to proceed with the next topic? So students, this chart we have discussed in our chapter number 3 also, but let us just quickly have a look at it so that the next topics like risk assessment procedures, other procedures, substantive procedures, test of controls, the definition of all these. And if you remember, in chapter number 3, I have told you that the discussion that we are having with respect to all these procedures, I'm sure that your understanding and your learning will be clear, right? So if you remember, I told you that when you look at the definition of all these risk assessment procedures, test of controls, and substantive procedures, the definition starts with the term, these are what? Audit procedures, right? And risk assessment procedures, since risk is assessed at both the levels, financial statement level and assertion level, so you will see that in the definition, the you will see that procedures are performed at both levels, right? However, test of control and substantive procedures are performed at assertion level. We have had a good discussion with respect to this in chapter number 3, but again, here I'm going to repeat it. So shall we start? So analytical procedures, Dhanush, I'll take that again at the end of the session. Abhi, let us start with this. Because analytical procedures are going to come here also in this chart. So I'll repeat it here. Is it clear? Is it fine, Dhanush? Okay. So see, auditor may perform audit procedures under SA 315 or SA 330, right? When the auditor is performing audit procedure to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment, those are called what? Risk assessment procedures, as we have discussed in detail in chapter number 3. So let us just quickly have a look at the definition. So, and I always tell you that you should learn the definitions, you should pick up the keywords, but that should be done after understanding. So if you have understood the concept, the learning is going to be very easy for you. So see, audit procedures performed. So I told you definition of risk assessment procedure, test of control, substantive procedure, it starts with these words only, right? So in fact, they start with audit procedures, right? So audit procedures performed to obtain, now you're learning of the name of essay 315, as I've told you in our earlier sessions, right? So to obtain an understanding of entity and its environment, including the entity's internal control, to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, at the financial statement and the assertion level. So we have seen that the auditor assesses the risk of material misstatement at both the levels, at financial statement level also and at the assertion level also. So when we say at a financial statement level, it means where it is the risk is having an impact on many assertion. That is the word used was what? It is having a pervasive effect, having an effect on the financial statement as a whole. And assertion level pe kya tha? When the auditor is what? He's looking as to with respect to a particular assertion, let's say with respect to sales, with respect to depreciation, particular assertion, right? Valuation of, let's say, building. So auditor performs the risk, he performs audit procedure to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement at both the level, financial statement level and assertion level. So if you have an understanding in mind as to what SA 315 is, what is the name of SA 315 and why auditor is performing risk assessment procedure, this definition, learning of this definition is going to be cakewalk for you. Just, just logically see, auditor performs the procedure. Why? To obtain understanding of entity and its environment, which includes what? Entity's internal control also, right? Why? To identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, and it can be due to fraud or error. Okay, at what levels? At both the levels, financial statement level and at the assertion level, right? So we have discussed in our early session that the auditor may perform inquiry, observation, analytical procedure, inspection when he's performing what? The risk assessment procedures. So is it clear? Assertion meaning students. So Himat, I have discussed this term a number of times, but yes, in this chapter also there is a detailed discussion of this term. Just maybe the next topic is this term assertion only, so I'll discuss it there. Okay. So this was with respect to risk assessment procedure. Now, in response to the auditor's assessed risk of material misstatement under SA 315, auditor responses to such risk under SA 330. What is the name of SA 330? The auditor's responses to assessed risk by performing further audit procedures. Such further audit procedures can be test of controls or substantive procedures, and such substantive procedures can further be test of details and substantive analytical procedures. Students, I have told you, we have discussed as to when auditor will perform test of control. So when by after performing risk of material mistake, after performing the risk assessment procedures and identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement, auditor intends to rely on internal control. So before actually relying on the internal control, auditor will check whether the internal controls are effectively operating throughout the year or not by performing what? Test of controls. Now, what are test of control? So again, these are what? Audit procedures, right? Designed to evaluate the operating effectiveness of control. Now, why the company, the client organization implements the internal control? So the purpose is to prevent or detect and correct. So if you remember, I've told you why prevent and detect are connected by or, and detect and correcting are connected by and. So I've told you, let's take a very simple example of CCTV cameras. So first of all, if the CCTV cameras are involved, first of all, either the person, let's say, if any thief has come to steal something, so he will be prevented. He'll see the camera and he'll not, steal. He'll go back after looking at the cameras. So either it will prevent, or let's say he has done the theft. So the CCTV cameras are going to detect, and based on that, corrective action will be taken. So that is why detect and correct, right? The material misstatement at assertion level. Now tell me, can there be a control on the financial statement as a whole, that this control has been implemented on the financial statement whole as a whole, and the financial statement will now reflect a true and fair of view, or let's say for the financial statement as a whole, one control has been implemented which will prevent or detect and correct material misstatement? So the answer is no. The company, the client organization is going to implement the internal control with respect to particular assertion. So with respect to traveling bills, there is one control that the, let's say there is one control that the traveling bill exceeding rupees 10,000, it is to be signed by two authorized signatory. So with respect to particular assertion, particular controls have been implemented by the client organization. That is why auditor is going to perform the audit procedure with respect to internal control implemented at the assertion level. That is why here we are not using the term financial statement level, because there cannot be a control that this has been implemented on the financial statement as a whole. Now it will prevent or detect and correct material misstatement at the financial statement level. No. The client organization, let's say, with respect to the financial statement, if the client has to see that the bills are authorized, then only they are passed and payment is made. So the client is going to implement control with respect to that particular thing. Let's say if the client has to implement a control that at the the inventory, whenever inventory comes in, whenever inventory goes out, so at that particular moment some counting takes place, some signatures are done, it is done in the presence of some supervisor. So this is a particular control with respect to that particular assertion, right? So when particular controls are implemented for particular assertion, so you are going to check at that assertion level only. So that is why there is the term financial statement level is not there in the definition of term test of control, right? So let us have a look at this definition again. So these are the audit procedures designed to, so just keep in mind why the client organization or why the client organization implements the internal control. Then auditor is going to check whether such internal control is able to meet its objective or not, and then read this definition. So audit procedure designed to evaluate the operating effectiveness of control in preventing or detecting and correcting material misstatement at the assertion level. So now I want a quick reply from all of you. Tell me whether this definition is clear and whether you are able to understand as to why in the definition of the term risk assessment procedure, we see financial statement level as well as assertion level. But in the definition of term test of control, it is at the assertion level only. Send in your replies. Mahalakshmi is saying yes. Others also please reply. Tanvi saying yes. Rajita saying yes. Rishita saying yes. Others also please reply. Vishal saying yes, ma'am, understood. Chalo, good. So now the next is what? Substantive procedures. So if you just look at this diagram, so now we are talking about, so we have done risk assessment procedures, we have done definition of test of controls. And if you remember in chapter number 3, we discussed that performing substantive procedure is mandatory. So auditor cannot give his opinion just by performing risk assessment procedures and test of controls. So he cannot say, since the assessment of risk of material misstatement is low and the internal controls are affected, I'm giving my opinion without performing substantive procedures. Substantive procedures will be performed. It can be test of detail, it can be substantive analytical procedure, or a combination of both. It depends upon auditor's professional judgment and the circumstances of the case, right? So now is the definition of term substantive procedures. So what are substantive procedures? Again, these are what? The audit procedures which are designed to detect. So I forgot to write here audit procedures. So these are audit procedures designed to detect material misstatement at the assertion level. So can I perform any audit procedure whereby I perform that audit procedure and I'll see whether a material misstatement is there at a financial statement as a whole? Answer is no. Since I have to give my opinion on the financial statement as a whole. I, as an auditor, and that is not possible unless and until I check each and every assertion that is coming in the financial statement. So, abhi ke liye, if you are not aware about the meaning of the term assertion, though we have had a good discussion with respect to this. So, assertion means the all the you can say the representations that the management has made in the financial statement. So if it is mentioned that building of 10 CR is there, so management is basically saying that this building exists. The company is having ownership over this building. The valuation is correct. The presentation disclosure of this building is correct in the balance sheet. So all these assertions. So when I have to, let's say, I have to see whether the ownership of the building is there or not of the company. So what I'll do, I'll perform an audit procedure. What audit procedure? I'll inspect the title deed of that building, right? So see, this is the audit procedure. Why? To design and to detect the material misstatement at the assertion level. What was the assertion level? The ownership of the building, right? So just read this definition again. Audit procedure designed to detect material misstatement at the assertion level. Is it clear? Right? And it can consist of test of details and substantive analytical procedure. So when we say that it can consist of test of details and substantive analytical procedures, so I hope substantive procedures kya hai, this is clear to all of you. Now, test of details and substantive analytical procedure. So substantive analytical procedure, now the doubt, I don't remember the name of the student, but whosoever has raised the doubt with respect to analytical procedure. So see, SA 520 deals with the analytical procedure when the auditor performs them as substantive analytical procedures. What is meant by that? See, as the name suggests, test of details. Here I am checking the financial statement in detail. That is, let's say if I have to check whether the P&L items are proper or not, I'll pick up each item: sales, purchases, inventory, direct expenses, direct income, indirect income, everything I'm going to take. And I'm going to check them in detail, that whether the sales that to this particular debtor, to such the cash sales. So I'm going to check each and every line item, and I'm going to check whether these are correct or not, or whatever assertions I want to check, right? So one way can be this. So I'm testing in detail, right? Other way can be, I'm not testing this, all the items of the sales in detail. I'm performing analytical procedures. So what I'm doing, I'm just checking the net profit to sales ratio. I'm comparing it with the earlier years. I'm just analyzing the trend of that ratio in the earlier years. I'm comparing that ratio with the other company in the similar industry. So as such, I'm not checking in detail, right? Take another example. Suppose I have to check whether the rent paid is correct or not, right? So test of details may, you can take the example that what I do, I just go through the rent agreement. I just ask for a confirmation from the third party. I just look at the bank statement. So I'm testing everything in detail with respect to that rent payment, right? Or I may perform substantive analytical procedure, whereby what I'll do, just ask the management, or I'll just go, I'll just ask the management, tell me what is the monthly rent, or management says it is 50,000. I'll multiply it by 12. I'll see whether the amount that I am computing and the amount that is shown in the P&L, whether it is correct or not, it is matching or not. So this is what a reasonableness test, one of the examples of substantive analytical procedure, right? So whether to check anything in detail, or whether to perform substantive analytical procedure, or whether to perform both, it depends upon my professional judgment, my assessment of risk of material misstatement, my assessment of whether internal controls are effective or not. But yes, substantive procedures will be performed. So when the auditor is checking, the financial statements in detail, line item by line item. These are what test of details. When he's just analyzing that data, like ratio analysis, reasonableness, trend analysis, these are what substantive analytical procedures. And again, I'm saying that we are going to do this in detail when we will be doing essay 520. When auditor performs test of details, it can be testing of transaction, that is vouching, or testing of balances like verification. So testing of transaction, let's say sales hai, purchases hai, I'm going through the invoices, I'm going through the agreement, I'm just taking as to whether I have done, I'm vouching all the documents, right? Testing of balances is there. For example, if I want to see whether 10 lakh a building is there or not, I will verify. I'll just verify as to whether that building exists or not. I'll just verify all those things. So these are what the verification. So when the auditor is testing, he's performing test of details, he may vouch the transactions or he may verify the balances. So uh, this is basically what vouching. When you are conducting vouching, you are examining the documents, right? Same way with respect to verification of the balances. Let's say I have to see whether this plant and machinery exists or not. I'll just go and see whether it exists or not, right? So these are the procedures that the auditor may perform. And I'll repeat it again. Performance of substantive procedure is a must for an auditor. He cannot give his opinion by performing only the risk assessment procedure and the test of control. Yes, substantive procedures are to be performed. Yes, whether to perform test of details or substantive analytical procedure or a combination of both depends upon auditor's professional judgment and his risk assessment of risk of material misstatement and test of control. So let us have a look at the definition of substantive procedures again. So these are what the audit procedure designed to detect material misstatement. Now, do you all know that we as auditor, we are concerned with only the material misstatement and at the assertion level, and it may consist of test of details and substantive analytical procedure or both. Now tell me, are you able to understand why in the definition of term test of control and substantive procedure, you see only the term assertion level? However, risk assessment procedures may you see both the terms financial statement level and assertion level. So with this, we have covered till page number 4.23. Tell me, is it clear? Is it clear? Because see, these concepts are the very, foundation of understanding this entire topic of audit evidence. So Rishita, Mahalakshmi, Rajita, Vishal are saying yes. Gayatri saying yes. Students, please reply. So, Himat, please specify your query in detail. What do you want to ask about the provision items? Meanwhile, students, please go through this question, test your understanding one, which is given on page number 4.22. And I want answers from all of you, but please just read these questions, very carefully. Just see as to where you have studied about this question. And if at this moment you are not able to answer, just flip back the pages of your module and just give me the correct answer after looking at the book. So on perusal is on reading. The financial statements of a company, auditor of company finds that note to account contain aging of trade payables in accordance with requirement of Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013. The accountant of company is responsible for ensuring proper aging of trade payables included in notes to accounts. The auditor wants to verify whether the aging of trade payables made in financial statement is proper or not. Identify what is he trying to do. So basically, you have to identify the audit procedure that the auditor is trying to do. Now, read this question again if you want, and then give me the correct answer. So Himmat is saying, Himmat, I'll take up your query once this question is done. So Rishita is correct. Others also please reply. Jayendra is correct. Banu is correct. So auditor is, see what is written here. The accountant of the company is responsible for ensuring proper aging, including the notes to be included in the notes to accounts, right? So this is one of the internal controls that have been implemented. The auditor wants to verify whether aging of trade payables made is proper or not, or identify what he's trying to do. So he's trying to reperform that work that has already been done as a part of the client's internal control. So he's reperforming, right? Is it clear? Read test your understanding second. Is it clear? Yes, Prem, you are correct in whatever you are writing. So the next question. CA Surya is conducting audit of an entity. During the course of audit, she has made oral inquiries from head accountant regarding preparing of bank reconciliations every month, as has been laid down by the management. Discuss what inquiries, as stated above, would provide satisfaction to her that controls in respect of preparing bank reconciliation statements have operated effectively. Whether inquiries, as stated above, would provide satisfaction to her. So it is basically whether inquiries are going to provide her with sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So, Rishita, when I ask you whether inquiry is going to provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence, you cannot write yes here because inquiry alone cannot provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence. It is to be used in combination with some other audit procedures. ठीक है? So let us read this question again. So CA Surya Gayatri is conducting audit of a entity. During the course of audit, she has made oral inquiries from head accountant regarding preparing of bank reconciliation every month, as has been laid down by the management. See, oral inquiry can be there. Answer is yes. Why? Because we have seen when we did inquiry as one of the audit procedure that it may range from formal written inquiries to oral inquiries also. So in oral inquiry has been done, so that is fine. Discuss whether inquiries as stated above would provide satisfaction to her that controls in respect of preparing bank reconciliation statement has operated effectively. So, see, only inquiry won't lead to the evidence being sufficient and appropriate. She will have to perform some other audit procedure, be it in the form of observation or inspection or let's say reperformance, right? So, I'll do one thing. I'll take you to the answer to this, which is given at the end of the chapter. So, this is test your understanding too. See. Inquiry alone ordinarily does not provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence of the absence of material misstatement at the assertion level, nor the operating effectiveness of control. Mere inquiry does not lead to obtaining sufficient appropriate audit evidence. In the instance case, CA Surya should verify whether proper bank reconciliations have been carried out monthly as stipulated by management. Only then she can be satisfied about operating effectiveness of control in this regard. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes, Rihanna, you are correct. Others also please reply. Priyanka correct. Banu correct. Go through the third test or understanding also given on page number 4.23. 4.23. A company has stipulated a control that reconciliations of its records showing quantitative details of its property, plant, equipment are carried out at regular intervals with physical verification of such items. The auditor has found that such reconciliations are carried out as stipulated. It means that the internal controls as is required are working properly, right? Discuss whether above factor increases the reliability of other internally generated evidence within the company relating to existence of such items. Quickly read this again, right? See, I'll read this again. So a company has stipulated a control that reconciliation of its records showing quantitative details of its property, plant, equipment are carried out at regular intervals with physical verification of such items, right? The auditor has found that such reconciliations are being carried out as stipulated. So as the internal control has been implemented, it is working the same way. So will the confidence of auditor increase? The answer is yes, right? So the auditor discuss whether above factor, the factor of what? Whether the factor that the internal control are operating effectively. It increases the reliability of other internally generated audit evidence within the company relating to existence of such items. So if you remember, we have done a concept today with respect to reliability of audit evidence, where we have seen the audit evidence internally generated will be more reliable if the related internal controls are effective. So in the present case, students, the related internal controls are effective and auditor has seen that, right? So based on auditor's assessment with respect to the effective internal control, yes, obviously this is going to increase the reliability or his comfort with respect to the internally generated audit evidence. Is it clear? Yes, Sunil, you are correct. Rihanna, you are correct. ठीक है. So, now is a very interesting topic and one of my favorites topic, which is assertion. So today, as such, we'll not be able to complete this topic, but yes, I'll just start with a discussion with respect to this topic. So for all those Himmat and other students who were asking me as to ma'am, what is assertion? So though we have had a great discussion, a good discussion with respect to this term assertion in our chapter number 3. But since this is really very important from the point of view of understanding this chapter number 4, so I'm repeating that discussion again. So see, let's say there is a company, ABC Limited, right? The management of ABC Limited wants to tell the users of the financial statement that the company has a building historical cost of which is 10 CR, right? Tell me what is the option available to the company. So will the management just pick up the mic and start announcing that our company is having a building of 10 CR, furniture of so and so? Tell me, is this the correct way or will it get it printed in the newspaper? So all these are not the correct way. So the correct way is that management will represent that or declare that, or I can say the company will represent that or will declare that in the financial statements, right? So whatever representation, so if you look at the dictionary meaning of the term assertion, it means action of some stating something strongly, declaring something or making representation. So when the company has to tell the users of the financial statement that building of 10 CR is there, company is going to mention that, management is going to mention that in the financial statement. So when I say management is going to mention that, I can say represent that, right? Now let's say the company wants to tell the users that the historical cost is 10 CR, 10 crores, right? So company, the management is going to expressly mention this 10 CR, expressly mention करेंगे, ठीक है? Now, if the company wants to tell the users of the financial statement that this building is actually owned by the client, the company, or the you can say the valuation of this building is proper. So tell me, is management going to mention this in the financial statement, or is it implied? Tell me. My question is, if the management has to tell the users of the financial statement that the company is having the ownership over the building, are these words that the company owns this building mentioned in the financial statement? The answer is no, because such things are implied. So when let's say I, as a user of the financial statement, I just look at the financial statement and I see that building of 10 CR is there. ठीक है, building of 10 CR is there. So I, as the user of the financial statement, or let's say I, as the auditor of the financial statement, I'm going to assume that this building actually exists. The company is having the ownership over this building, right? And the valuation is proper. The presentation and disclosure is proper. These are the things that I'm going to assume, right? So if you just look at the definition of the term assertion, it is divided into two parts. The first part is with respect to the the management, and the second part is with respect to the auditor, right? So we will discuss these two parts one by one, and I think today we'll be able to discuss only the first part, that is, assertions are representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement. So representations by management. So I told you that if the management has to tell the users of the financial statement that building 10 CR ka hai, so auditor is going to mention that in the financial statement. If the management is going to represent that in the financial statement. If the management has to tell the users of the financial statement that sales of, let's say 20 CR has taken place during the year. So this information will be mentioned in the financial statement. By whom? By the management. So representations by management, explicit or otherwise. Explicit means expressly mentioned. Expressly mentioned. So just ठीक है, expressly mentioned, right? Or otherwise, what is the opposite of the term explicit? It is what? Implied. So this building exists. The company is having an ownership over this building. These are implied assertions. Or this I am going to assume. So am I going to assume that the building historical cost is 20 CR? No, it is specifically mentioned it is 10 CR. But yes, I'm going to assume that this building, the valuation is proper, that the presentation disclosure is proper, that it has been owned by the client organization, and that it actually exists, right? So assertions are what? Representations by management. Those can be expressly mentioned, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement. What is meant by term embodied? Included. So I told you in the very beginning, am I going to get that printed in the newspaper? No. Am I going to pick up a mic and just start announcing? No. Those will be mentioned in the financial statements only, right? So if you just look at the first part of the assertion, representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement. Tell me the three lines with the various keywords that I have just circled or just I have highlighted. Is the first part of this definition clear to all of you? Rishita is saying yes. Others also please reply. Correct. So all of you are saying yes. Okay. So I'll repeat it again. So assertion means the representations by management, explicit or otherwise. So representations by management means whatever the management wants to declare, whatever the management wants to tell the users of the financial statement. Explicit, expressly mentioned, or otherwise implied, that are embodied in the financial statement, that are included in the financial statement, right? I hope it is clear. Now, the other part, I'll just quickly take you through the other part so that we are done with this definition. Now, see, when we as auditor, we are conducting the audit of the client organization, we are checking the financial statement. Whatever management has given the information in the financial statement, that only I'm going to see now whether they represent a true and fair view, whether that building 10 CR, if it is coming, whether it is actually the historical cost is 10 CR, whether it is actually owned by the client organization, whether the presentation declaration is actually correct or not. Or let's say sales ka figure 20 lakhs is coming. So whether it is actually measured properly or not, right? So those assertion that management has made, that only I'm going to check. So that is why the next part says, as used by the auditor. So auditor is using those assertion only. Otherwise, what I'm going to check? See, whatever management is going to assert, whatever management is going to declare, that only auditor is going to check. So as used by the auditor, why? To consider different type of potential misstatement that may occur. What is meant by the term potential? Likely. And the term may is really very important because abhi to we have to check whether financial statements have reflected true and fair view. So that is why may occur. Potential is what? Likely. It may happen. Abhi to we don't know na. So that is why potential misstatement may occur. So let us have a read to this definition together, both the parts. So representation by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement, as are used by auditor to consider different type of potential misstatement that may occur. Whatever management is going to give me the information, that only I'm going to check. That is what is contained in the two parts of this definition. And this definition is really very important. Chapter number 3, chapter number 1, 4, and 5. You are going to see this word assertion again and again. And learning of this definition, students, see, my endeavor will be to make your understanding clear, and in fact some part of your learning also clear. But again, the efforts, the hard work you have to do. So just try to learn logically. So just keep in mind that we have a discussion whereby we divided the definition of the term assertion in two parts. First part had something to do with the management, the other part has something to do with the auditor. So representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement. Okay, what will auditor do? As used by the auditor to consider different type of potential misstatements that may occur. Is it clear? Is it clear? Tell me, is the definition of the term assertion clear? So Gayatri is saying yes. Others also please reply so that we can conclude the session for today. And in fact, I want all of you to reply that your understanding and your learning, your understanding of how to learn also. So Priyanka is saying, ma'am, crystal clear. Tanvi is saying, yes, ma'am, clear. Dhani is saying, yes. Nagaraj, Krutarth, everyone is saying yes. So that's good. So in case you have any query relating to today's session, so students, today we have discussed Essay 500, whereby we have discussed about the term audit evidence, what all is included in the information that the auditor may use at audit evidence. Then we have seen the various audit procedures the auditor may perform, whereby I have discussed in detail about all the audit procedure, ICAI ORR, that is inquiry, inspection, your external confirmation, analytical procedure, reperformance, your recalculation, right? And then we have seen the sufficiency, appropriateness of audit evidence, relevance, reliability of audit evidence. Then the various kind of audit procedure, risk assessment procedure, your test of control, substantive procedure, and then the definition of the term assertion. And student, today I've tried that your understanding part as well as your learning. The way I told you that assertion level will come in test of controls and your substantive procedure, but assertion level and financial statement level will come in risk assessment procedures ka, hai na? So I hope all your like all those concepts are clear to you. Quickly tell me. So I hope it is clear. ठीक है. So that's it from my side now. Over to you, Ankita ma'am from Board of Studies.
Thank you, Nancy ma'am, for this lecture. And students, one more information. Tomorrow is webinar for auditing and ethics, and the topic will be audit of various items of financial statements. The timing will be 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Do join that. The link is available on the BUS portal, and the class of LVC will be on Friday. So join that also. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, students.
Okay, students, thank you for being patient listener and thank you for making this session interactive. So before coming for the next session that is scheduled for Friday, you are supposed to go through the module till page number 4.23, till where we have covered in detail in entirety, and also we'll be covering essay 610 and your assertion topic. So I'll request you to please just flip on the pages, just go and read as to what are the topics that we are going to study in the next session before coming for the next session, right? So thank you and bye bye. Yes, yes. Okay, thank you.
Recording stopped.